Malia Obama, the daughter of one of the most influential leaders in modern history, was racially profiled during a routine traffic stop. The news shook the nation, sparking debates and igniting outrage. But for one person, it wasn't just another headline. Barron Trump, watching the story unfold, found himself grappling with an uncomfortable truth. What would he do if he had been in her shoes? Or worse, if he had stayed silent while injustice unfolded around him? This is the story of how two unlikely allies, bound by a shared determination, joined forces to confront prejudice and inspire change. Malia Obama had always carried herself with grace and determination. At 25, fresh off completing her graduate studies, she decided to celebrate her accomplishments with a solo road trip from Washington, D.C. to Atlanta. It was meant to be a moment of reflection and personal freedom, a chance to embrace her independence and chart her own path. The journey started peacefully, with the warm hues of the sun setting over the Virginia countryside, painting an idyllic backdrop. But that calm shattered when she stopped at a small-town gas station. A lone patrol car sat parked nearby, its officers staring at her intently. At first, Malia brushed it off, thinking it was just a passing glance. But as she finished refueling and drove away, flashing lights filled her rearview mirror. Her heart sank as she pulled over. The officer approached her window, his demeanor brisk and cold. Without explanation, he demanded her license and registration. Malia complied, handing them over, her hands trembling slightly. His next words cut through her like ice. "You're driving a little too nice of a car for this area." Malia was stunned. The officer's insinuation was clear. He doubted she belonged. The tension only escalated as another patrol car arrived, and the second officer ordered her to step out of the vehicle. They searched her car, rifling through her belongings, treating her personal items with little care. By the end of the encounter, they found nothing. "You're free to go," the officer muttered, as if the entire ordeal was insignificant. But for Malia, it wasn't insignificant. It was humiliating, infuriating, and deeply unjust. As she continued her journey to Atlanta, her mind raced. This wasn't just about her. It was a stark reminder of the systemic biases so many people face every day, and she knew she couldn't stay silent. When Barron Trump first heard about Malia Obama's experience, he was shocked. The details of the incident were both disturbing and uncomfortably familiar. Stories like this weren't new, but hearing it happen to someone he knew of made it hit closer to home. Sitting alone in his room, Barron couldn't shake the thought of Malia standing on the side of the road, humiliated and treated like she didn't belong. He thought about his own life, his last name, his privilege, and how different things had been for him. Would he ever face a situation like that? Likely not. The more he reflected, the more uncomfortable he became. Barron realized he had been shielded from the harsh realities that others, even those as accomplished as Malia, faced daily. That sense of unease turned into something stronger, a feeling he couldn't ignore. But what could he do? He wasn't a politician or an activist. He had no idea how to address something so deeply ingrained. Yet as the hours passed, one thing became clear. Staying silent wasn't an option. If I don't do something, Barron thought, then what am I really standing for? It was the beginning of a resolve to act, not out of obligation, but out of a growing belief that he could help amplify the voices of those fighting for change. And he knew exactly where to start. Barron decided to reach out to Malia directly. It wasn't an easy decision. What could he possibly say to someone who had faced such an ordeal? But he knew that the first step to making a difference was starting the conversation. After some hesitation, he sent her a message. "Hi, Malia. I heard about what happened. I can't imagine how you're feeling, but I want to help. If there's anything I can do, let me know." Malia, still reeling from the incident, was skeptical at first. Barron Trump, reaching out to her? It seemed unlikely that they had much in common, but something about his tone felt genuine, so she responded cautiously. "I appreciate the offer, Barron. I'm still figuring out what to do, but I'm open to ideas." They arranged to speak over a video call. When the conversation began, both were a little guarded. Barron admitted that he didn't fully understand what she had been through, but he wanted to learn. Malia, surprised by his humility, began to open up about the frustration, fear, and anger she had felt during the traffic stop. It wasn't just about me, Malia said. It was about what I represent. People see my last name and assume I'm untouchable, but that's not how racism works. It doesn't care who you are. Barron listened carefully, his expression serious. I've lived in a bubble, he admitted, but hearing your story made me realize how much needs to change. If you're willing to work with me, I want to help amplify your voice. For the first time in days, Malia felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't just about her anymore. Together, she and Barron could bring attention to the larger issue. A partnership that no one would see coming, but one that could make a real impact. After their initial conversation, Barron and Malia began brainstorming ways to address the issue of racial profiling. It wasn't enough to simply talk about it. They wanted to take action. Their conversations were a blend of raw emotion and strategic thinking, with Malia drawing from her experience and Barron offering his platform to amplify their efforts. We need to tell the stories that aren't being heard, Malia said firmly. Mine is just one example. This happens to so many people who don't have a voice. Barron nodded. What if we create a campaign? Something that highlights these stories and shows the systemic nature of the problem. We can use videos, articles, and public events to reach more people. The idea began to take shape. They decided to collaborate with civil rights organizations to gather stories from individuals across the country who had faced similar injustices. These stories would be shared through social media, news outlets, and a dedicated website they planned to launch. Malia, drawing from her father's legacy, suggested they also push for concrete legislative changes. We can't just raise awareness, she said. We need to advocate for accountability, policies that prevent this from happening again. Barron agreed. He reached out to connections he had in the media and political spheres, setting up meetings to discuss their campaign. For him, this was more than just lending his name. It was about using his privilege to create meaningful change. As the days went on, their plan came into focus. They would launch a national initiative aimed at raising awareness, promoting education on racial bias, and advocating for new laws. The partnership, built on trust and mutual respect, was beginning to take on a life of its own. When the campaign launched, it was unlike anything people had seen before. Barron Trump and Malia Obama, two individuals from vastly different backgrounds, stood together to address one of the most pressing issues of the time. Their message was clear. Racial profiling isn't just a problem. It's a systemic failure that demands accountability. The campaign kicked off with a powerful video featuring Malia recounting her experience. Her voice was steady, but the pain in her words was unmistakable. I was stopped because of the way I look, not because of anything I did, she said. This isn't about one incident. It's about a pattern that affects millions of people every day. Barron appeared in the same video expressing his own reflections. When I heard Malia's story, I realized how much I've taken for granted. This isn't just her fight. It's all of ours. We have to stand together to make a difference. The video went viral, sparking conversations across social media and news outlets. People were drawn not only to the cause, but to the unlikely partnership behind it. Together, Malia and Barron became a symbol of unity, showing that real change could come from bridging divides. They hosted press conferences, spoke at rallies, and met with lawmakers to push for legislative reforms. Their campaign called for mandatory bias training for law enforcement, stricter oversight of traffic stops, and increased transparency in policing practices. The response was overwhelming. Civil rights organizations and community leaders joined forces with the campaign, lending their expertise and amplifying its reach. Support poured in from across the country, with people sharing their own stories of profiling and discrimination. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Critics accused Barron of trying to gain political clout and dismissed Malia's efforts as privileged activism. The backlash was intense, but they didn't back down. This isn't about us, Malia said in one interview. It's about the countless people who have faced injustice and deserve better. Their determination began to pay off. Lawmakers introduced a bill addressing racial profiling at a federal level, citing their campaign as a driving force. For Malia and Barron, it was a small but significant victory in a fight that was far from over. With the campaign gaining momentum, the backlash came swiftly. Critics on social media accused Barron of exploiting Malia's story for attention, while others dismissed Malia's efforts as the actions of someone too privileged to understand the struggles of ordinary people. News segments debated their motives, and online trolls bombarded their platforms with hateful comments. The criticism took its toll. Late one night, Barron called Malia, his voice heavy with frustration. "I don't understand how trying to help can make people so angry. Maybe I'm just not the right person for this." Malia paused before responding, her voice calm but firm. "This was never going to be easy, Barron. When you challenge the status quo, people fight back. But this isn't about us. It's about the people we're trying to help. If we give up now, what kind of message does that send?" Her words struck a chord. Barron realized that the negativity they were facing was a reflection of the very problem they were trying to address. Rather than backing down, they decided to double down. They took to social media to address the backlash head-on. In a heartfelt video, Barron admitted, "I know I come from privilege, and I'll never fully understand what others go through. But that's exactly why I'm doing this, to learn, to listen, and to help." Malia followed with her own post, writing, "Fighting for justice is never comfortable, but it's necessary. We won't let criticism distract us from what matters." Their transparency resonated with supporters who rallied behind them in even greater numbers. Donations to their campaign surged, and community leaders publicly voiced their support. The backlash, while painful, became a catalyst for even greater unity. As they weathered the storm together, Barron and Malia grew stronger in their resolve. They knew that change would take time, but they also knew that they couldn't let fear or negativity stop them from moving forward. The campaign reached a critical turning point during a rally in Washington, D.C. The event drew thousands of people, from students and activists to families who had faced similar injustices. Barron and Malia stood side by side on the stage, addressing a sea of supporters holding signs that read, "End racial profiling and justice for all." Malia spoke first, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "This isn't just my story. It's the story of every person who has been judged, mistreated, or dismissed because of how they look. Today we stand together to demand better, for ourselves, for our families, and for the future." The crowd erupted in applause, their energy electric. When Barron stepped forward, he hesitated for a moment, taking in the enormity of the moment. Then he spoke from the heart. "I grew up in a world where I never had to think about these things, but hearing Malia's story, and the stories of so many others, opened my eyes. It's not enough to say I care, I have to show it. We all do." Their words resonated far beyond the rally. News outlets covered the event extensively, emphasizing the unity displayed by such an unlikely partnership. Social media buzzed with clips of their speeches, inspiring countless others to join the movement. That night, Malia and Barron received word that their efforts had made a tangible impact. A major city announced a sweeping review of its policing practices, pledging to eliminate racial profiling and implement mandatory bias training. It was a small step, but it signaled real progress. For Barron and Malia, it was a moment of validation. The rally wasn't just about raising awareness, it was about proving that collective action could lead to meaningful change. As they stood backstage, exhausted but elated, Barron turned to Malia and said, "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" Malia smiled, her determination shining through. "It is, and we're just getting started." The rally marked a shift, not just in public perception, but in the movement itself. What started as a reaction to a single incident had grown into a nationwide call for justice. Barron and Malia's partnership became a symbol of unity, proving that change could come when people from different worlds worked together. In the weeks that followed, their campaign gained even more momentum. They partnered with civil rights organizations to host town halls across the country, giving a platform to those who had experienced racial profiling firsthand. Each story shared added another layer to their fight, reminding everyone of the human cost of systemic bias. Malia led with her passion for activism, speaking at universities and community centers about the importance of standing up against injustice. Barron, once hesitant to step into the spotlight, found his voice as an advocate. He used his platform to encourage others in positions of privilege to listen, learn, and act. Together, they worked tirelessly to push for legislative reform. Meetings with lawmakers became regular occurrences, and their proposed policies, ranging from improved oversight of police practices to community-based initiatives, started gaining bipartisan support. But their efforts weren't just about policy. They also focused on education, launching a campaign to address implicit bias in schools, workplaces, and law enforcement. Their message was clear: change starts with understanding, and understanding starts with listening. Through it all, their friendship deepened. What had begun as a collaboration born of circumstance had grown into a shared vision for a better future. They often reflected on how far they'd come, drawing strength from the progress they had made and the lives they had touched. "We've shown people what's possible," Barron said during one late-night planning session. "Now we have to keep going." Malia nodded, her resolve unwavering. "This isn't just about fixing the system. It's about changing the way people see each other. If we can do that, we can create a future where no one has to live in fear of being judged for who they are." As the campaign continued to grow, Barron and Malia reflected on the journey that had brought them together. What began as a single act of standing up against injustice had evolved into a powerful movement, touching lives and inspiring change across the nation. For Malia, the experience reaffirmed her belief in the importance of using her voice to fight systemic inequities. "This fight is bigger than me," she said. "It's about creating a future where no one has to live in fear of being treated unfairly simply because of who they are." For Barron, the journey was transformative. "I've learned that privilege isn't something to shy away from," he shared. "It's a tool we can use to create meaningful change. If my voice can help amplify others, then it's my responsibility to use it." Together, they proved that even the most unlikely partnerships can make a difference. Their collaboration inspired a new generation to challenge prejudice, fight for justice, and believe in the power of unity. As the final rally of their campaign drew to a close, Malia looked out at the crowd and smiled. "This isn't the end," she said. "It's just the beginning of what we can achieve together." Barron stepped forward, his voice steady. "When we stand together, there's nothing we can't accomplish. This is how we build a better world, for everyone." Their story is a reminder that change doesn't come easy, but it's always possible when people are willing to listen, learn, and act. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time, like and subscribe for more inspiring videos.